Hey everyone, it's me, Arthur Kade. Billy Porter, as I'm sitting with you, you're number 2 on the iTunes R&B charts with your new album.
Yes.
I just got an email. I'm like, well, he's going to be in a good mood sitting with me.
I just got the email too.
Congratulations.
Broadway is crossing over.
It's got to be awesome. You've got pretty much every big name on Broadway on this album. And then you threw Pentatonics in there on top of it.
India Arie and Lettucey and Deborah Cox and Todrick Hall. We got a whole cross-section of people from different, areas of the business, different worlds, from the R&B world, from the theater world, from the YouTube sensation world. And it's just exciting. It's thrilling to have my friends on a record and have people actually buy it.
Can you tell he's excited today? How do you get all these people on there? Is it phone calls? Is it management reaching out? How does it all happen?
It's both. I mean, I have my own personal relationship with everybody who was on the album, so I actually reached out to them personally. That just comes from being in the business for a very long time. You make friends.
Who was your favorite? I mean, you've got everyone from Renee Elise Goldsberry
Who's
in there.
My favorite?
Who's your favorite to work? You collaborated with her.
All
you can't
my
pick
favorite
favorites?
babies. I do not pick favorites.
Talk to me about the theme of the album, because I love it with Richard Rodgers. So talk to me about how this all came together.
Well, it started out as love. The theme was about love. I chose a bunch of love songs, and then the election happened, and I looked at what I had chosen, and I looked at the work of Richard Rodgers and Rodgers and Hammerstein, and how the shows that they wrote back in the day were very forward moving, very pushing the envelope politically. And some of the tone shifted a little bit, deepened even more. And I'm really excited. It's about love is love is love, and that's the only way that we can heal the world. And so that's a message that I think is really important right now.
How do you translate it to an audience? Because we're dealing with a different type of audience. And when Richard Rodgers wrote this music years and years ago to where the audience is right now, how are you able to modernize it and make it so that people want to listen to it today?
Well, I think, I've always been a person who has learned how to be contemporary from being classic. If you don't know what the rules are, then you can't break them. And the classics, when you have a song, when you have a classic song structure like these songs that were written back in the 40s and the 30s and things like that by these amazing writers, it was the golden age of Broadway. It was the pop music of the day, and so I wanted to sort of bring that forward. And it's not difficult when you actually have the basis of really, really unbelievable material. It could transcend time. It transcends all glass ceilings. And that's what I hope we've been able to achieve.
I was looking at the roster of people you had participate. I'm thinking, just like you had said, everybody comes from a different background. You've got Pentatonics, who got their start on YouTube. You've got Todrick Hall, who's YouTube, but now also on Broadway.
Yep.
You've got the Hamilton. And your part. You've got the Hamilton stars. When you see the way everybody can make it in this business, isn't it crazy?
It's great. I mean, when I started, I grew up in the Pentecostal church. I sang gospel music, initially R&B soul, and, crossing over to theater and getting bit by the bug and being able to make a living, being blessed to be able to make a living that way. When I started back in the 90s, the worlds there wasn't a way for them to come together. I think the internet has been such a great way for like-minded people who sort of seem on opposite ends of the spectrum to come together and create a community that is now viable. And it's amazing. It's amazing to see. Something like this couldn't have happened 25 years ago.
I was talking to Patti LuPone last week at the opening of her show, and I feel like Broadway right now is at this incredible level of talent, unlike what we've seen ever. And I mean, there's always talent on Broadway, but it's a different level right now. Would you agree?
I think that it's different, but I also think that it is expansive. And I think it's expanded in a way that traditionalists, dare I say, would maybe not have thought it would be able to. And I'm just excited. I mean, Hamilton really threw down the gauntlet. It's like you can't get more contemporary than hip hop.
Did it change the game? When Hamilton, obviously, with its popularity and how it went mainstream, but did it change the game in terms of the way you think producers understand we have to attack the audience in different ways now? Do you think it's altered thinking?
I think so. I mean, I hope so. I hope that the producers would be smart enough to learn that, you know, hip hop and R&B and soul music has always been about storytelling. It might not have been the story that you wanted to hear, but it's always been storytelling. And so, you know, Broadway has always been a fertile place for it. And now I think we're getting to see that grow and expand.
I talk to so many actors, icons, and every time I talk to them, I say, what's your dream? And the response, more common than not, is Broadway. I want to return to Broadway. I want to return to theater. Why is that such a home for actors? Why do actors, you can have the pinnacle of success. You could be in a movie that grosses $1 billion, and yet you'll hear the actor say, I want to go to theater. What is it about theater that draws artists like you in?
Theater is about family. You know, theater is something where you do create a family because of how closely you work together and how intensely you work together. You know, film and television, very often you're working out of order. If you know, especially in film, if you don't have a scene with somebody, you never meet them. You know, in the theater, you're telling the story from the beginning to the end 8 times a week. And you're telling that with the same people every time, you know. And so it creates a family that I think doesn't always necessarily exist in show business.
When you were playing Lola, when you were doing Kinky Boots, and it was the biggest show that year, what's that like, being the face of the biggest show on Broadway? Like, I've talked to Lin-Manuel about this when Hamilton was at its peak at the beginning. It's still at its peak, but when it was, you know, the story of the universe. Yeah. What's it like when you're the face of a show that owns the universe?
I was unaware that was what it was. You know, it's interesting with theater because you have to do 8 shows a week. You know, it's not like you've made it and it's in the can and you get to sit back and enjoy it. I was doing press all day, every day, and then going to the show and doing the show at night, or doing press in the morning and going to the matinee and doing 2 shows. So it's hard to. It's hard. It's
like,
hard.
I can't enjoy it one bit.
It wasn't. I didn't really enjoy it until I left the show, and then I could sit back and see the mark that it has made, and that's been amazing. But while you're doing it, you're doing it.
You're working. You're paying the bills and working.
Yes.
Do offers start rolling in? Because I remember your speech at the Tonys, and it was moving, and I know how much work you do, and we'll talk about it in a second philanthropically, but because you're having success on Broadway at that moment, do all of a sudden TV and movie offers start? Do people take notice and say, hey, we want you to be part of this movie, we want you to be part of this TV show, or is it kind of isolated?
Not as much as I would like. But a little, I mean, you know, it depends on the person. It depends on the timing. It depends on what's out there. You know, I really, when I got Kinky Boots, I really made the point to choose to be in the moment that I was in and not worry about what was going to come, because it's so rare. It's so rare that you get to have the successes that I've been able to have. And I don't want to ruin enjoying them by being focused on other stuff. So I'm in the moment. That's the practice that I'm trying to do.
Another practice you do is you're so active philanthropically in all the organizations you work with. Talk to me about it. I've talked to you a little bit about it the last time I saw you, but go into detail. You do so much in the community. I just, you know, I came out in the 80s as a gay man. I went straight to the front lines. We went straight to the front lines to fight for our lives during the AIDS crisis. And, you know, I'm a product of my family and the civil rights movement. And so it's just in my blood. You know, I know that unfortunately life is not a level playing field. You know, we don't all get to start from the same place and pull ourselves up by bootstraps that aren't there. And I have been lucky and blessed to, you know, be placed in situations where there were angels, you know, brilliant angels there to guide me and push me in the right direction. And so it's the pay it forward thing. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I didn't
do that. It's just in my blood. So
When you came out, were there ever thoughts about this could hurt my career at that time?
absolutely. And it did.
It
I made
actually
the choice. I made the choice. And with everything that comes along with standing inside of a truth that's uncomfortable to others, I lived through it. We are on the other side. I'm living it on the other side. It's on my terms. And there's nothing greater. There's no greater feeling than that.
What do you think needs to do more for LGBT rights? What progress, what more needs to be done right now?
We just have to stay vocal. We have to stay visible. We have to stay vigilant. We have to hold our leaders up to a standard that we haven't been or we thought we were. And we just have to make sure that we make our voices known and make sure that we keep this world that we live in a democracy. And that's by being visible. That's by being visible, standing up and talking about and fighting for what you believe in.
Obviously, with the new album, you're focusing on timeless music. But what do you think about the music industry right now in general, about the new stuff that's being made?
I feel like my grandma sometimes because it's like I listen to the new pop music today, and there's a lot of it that I love, and there's a lot of it that I just feel like I've aged out of, and I think that's the same way. I think but that's not. I don't mean that in a disparaging way, because when I was that age, I had the people that I loved as well. So we all grow up in it and we grow through it, and we sort of settle at a certain age into a particular kind of music. Mine is grown folk music. I like to call it grown folk music.
I was talking to somebody about this because you look at music today versus music in the 70s. The artist talent is different. I mean, the singing, the instrumentals, it's different. I mean, the people you have on your album, those are talented people. Yes. Like the guys for the crew from Pentatonics, they're my buddies. I mean, Indy Ari, these are talented people. Craft. But then you see some of the pop stars today and you're like, really? It's all auto-tune. It's so bad. That would drive me nuts if I was
auto-tune.
I know. It would drive me nuts if I knowing that I'm a talented person like you are, I would see that stuff and I'd be like, oh my God, I can't stand this.
But if I was spending my time looking behind me worried about what other people were doing, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you talking about the stuff that's happening.
True.
So it doesn't, we have to stay. I stay on my own journey and try to push my creativity forward.
You'd mentioned the word love at the top of this interview. Mm-hmm. When people hear this album, love is one of the things, but what do you hope they take away from it?
I hope they take a call to action, a call to action to understand that now love is an action. It's an act. You can't. We have to sit. We have to stand up and be active now. I think, we've lived in a passive place for a while, because things were happening and things were moving forward, and everybody was, happy, and we had a black president and all of those kinds of things. And I think we got a little lazy. So we have to be active. Our love has to be active.
I love that. He's a talented guy, and he assembled a roster of more talented people to make an incredible new album. Make sure to check out Billy Porter's new album in stores and on iTunes now.